We're good?
Yeah.
Welcome to the Fredonia Central School Board of Education meeting for Tuesday, April 8th, 2025. We start each meeting with a pledge to the flag, so please join me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We need to approve the agenda for our meeting tonight, April 8th, 2025. It includes consent for, this might be a record, all of personnel and all new business, so that is unique. Is there anything anyone would like pulled out of consent? No? Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? I'm sorry? Oh, did I?
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Yes, could I have a motion? Second.
Second.
Okay, thank you. And we did all in favor? Opposed? Okay. We move into public comment. The board is reserved this time to hear comments from the audience. Those wishing to address the board are asked to stand, give their name and address, and limit your comments to 5 minutes or less per individual or group. Concerns and comments during the session should be directly related to the items listed on the proposed agenda for this meeting. So is it for the agenda, Mary?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, so big crowd tonight.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, Mary Days,
Yeah.
4422 Osborne Road.
Okay.
So I see the budget is on the agenda tonight, so I'll take this opportunity now. So as you know, well, I'm saying with the budget, you have to hold the line. Okay, hold the line. The voters spoke in December, and we talked about we just don't have a strong business or populous tax base, and you can't keep biting the hand that feeds you. Okay, those here for decades, it's like getting blood from a stone. You can't do it. And then the 50% or more that the Village of Fredonia is proposing. I've been busy with, I can't give you the pulse right now. I know it was a buzz in December. I'm busy with my own ranching and farming activities, and I'm briefly even homeschooling 3 of my grandsons right now. So I can't really tell you that, but I know like a farmer right down the road, they're selling their property. They've been there for decades. They can't afford the taxes. And then in town, you've got poverty issues and just people trying to make it. So I'm not talking about, you need to make cuts. You can't just, things that people want, and you say, no, we can't do that. You really have to make cuts. And I know that's not easy, but homeowners have to do it. And you need to probably also start the ball rolling on consolidation. Somebody has to do it. I know there's state factors, but in other states, there'd be like a northern county type school system. It wouldn't be all these individuals. And I think what I would suggest is everybody falls prey to a comfortable complacency. What we have, we get used to it, but it is a comfortable complacency. Administratively, you're top heavy. Okay, there should probably be cuts there. I can give you the specific history on vice principals. That came in when the state had that crazy APPR was rolled out, where it was massive. The amount of observations, all the paperwork. Principals said, that's all we'll have time to do. We need help. And I remember at the time I was in and out of the union board. I remember, Darren, you might have even been president at the time. I can't remember, it doesn't matter. But I remember saying, if there's money, shouldn't we be opposing this a little bit? All these observations and this. Not that part of it, but if there's money, shouldn't we maybe be hiring reading teachers if the money's there, especially at the younger levels? But that's why it came in, because there were not vice principals or assistants before that. It was like this APPR. But that's gone away. APPR hasn't gone away, but that massive amount of paperwork is gone. And so now, of course, you're comfortable with having these vice principals, but they were never before. And that APPR part has gone away at that level. It really has. And frankly, it's difficult to say, I know, but it really doesn't affect student achievement. What student achievement is affected by is by conscientious and competent teachers in the trenches who educate themselves. That's what student achievement accounts for. So you really need to look at that, because that is the history on that, and I remember very well. Another thing is in and out with budgets. Sometimes the position was in, sometimes it was out. But that would be your director, you can call it an assistant superintendent, but the director of curriculum or human resources, I don't know what the title is exactly now. But that was never a thing that was guaranteed. When there was a hard budget, that position was cut. And whatever paperwork was needed, it was divided out between the superintendent and principals. It really was. And some of it, a lot of it is a lot of paperwork from the state, some of it's grants, but a lot of them are not even competitive grants. It's just a matter of getting the paperwork out. And the principals, they divvied that out and they did that. That was a position that was never guaranteed. And so that would be an idea. I don't think the public's aware. Okay, so everybody moved up to Wheelock when there was the thing, and then they moved back. I'm sure it has to be a state requirement that there's an administrator or a certified person down there. But is the public aware that this principal at that position, not the person inside, is a highly paid position only responsible for 2 grade levels? That's not fiscally responsible. That position, seems to me, could take on some of the responsibilities of what I just described with the paperwork and curriculum and things like that. That is just not fiscally responsible for that. And certainly shouldn't be hiring any more administrators or assistant principals. I don't know why a survey went out in the elementary school asking the teachers about budgetarily, should we hire an assistant principal? Certainly shouldn't be hiring any more, so I don't know where that came from. So administratively, you're top heavy. Okay, now, the public would think of these as department heads, but there are a lot of instructional leaders. That list has gotten this long, okay? Department heads, yes, there should be for the main areas, but one for every grade level, and then within the school, one for every subject. That's just not necessary. Teachers don't need to be paid for every time they turn around for just normal things that we do, okay? So you don't need that many. You need some, but you don't need all that many. So that's an area there.
30 seconds left.
Okay, well, I can come back and do again. So if you don't like what I'm saying, okay.
It's just that you're
Yes, I realize it, but so I could say more about that, but the accountability behind that, I'm not sure it's even there. I know when I had that position, I won't take that time right there, but, and I've said it before about retiring teachers. You don't need to replace them, okay? That's a financial gift. I think there's one at Wheelock, there's another one at my level. Last year, I'd said, don't replace me, there's another one retiring, and at the time, it was like, well, it's too soon, they're teaming, we have to study it. Well, what's the study say? Okay, matter of fact, grade 5 and 6 are still elementary classes. That 5th teacher instead of the 6th could be a self-contained classroom, which actually for an elementary student would probably be a very welcome thing for many of the students. You don't need to replace those people.
Mayor,
So,
I'm going to have to interject, okay? Not that we don't appreciate your comments, but you're up to 7 minutes, so.
okay, no, I
Can you
appreciate
wrap up in 30 seconds?
the time I had last time. So the last thing you should do is consider is the board get into the classrooms, observe. You'll see many good things. Observe other things. Do a survey. Do a survey to the teachers, independent of administrators and independent of the union, and put some measure of confidentiality into it so that the teachers don't feel repercussions. But you'll get ideas of what inside waste is, their ideas of what will be good, what's not, and I challenge you to do that, because you'll also find just cultural things, and that's how you can improve. And so I take that matter to heart, and you can't keep killing the taxpayers is what you're doing. Okay,
All right,
thank you.
Mary.
I know you didn't like what I have to say, so you're real careful on my time tonight, but I do appreciate the time.
No, it's not that we don't value your comments. It's just that we do have a time limit, and it's 5 minutes, and you got 8.
Yes, no, I appreciate that. And think of what affects student achievement. All these things have not done well with student achievement. I looked it up on the state test. Almost every area, at least in LA, you're below even the state. The state isn't doing well in Fredonia, except for 1 grade level. You're well below even the state.
Thank you. All right, moving on, we need to approve the minutes from the regular meeting of March 18th, 2025. Can I have a motion to bring that to the table?
So moved.
Ms. Hahn, thank you. A second?
Second.
Mr. Kinley, thank you. Any questions on those minutes? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, well, moving into the big topic for the night, which is the budget. So, Mr. Forbes, I'll pass it on to you.
I'm going to open with a
Oh, you're
little
gonna open,
intro real quick.
All right.
I just want to remind everybody and to please note that our budget is currently a work in progress. We need to adopt a budget by April 25th. We will be adding a Board of Education meeting on April 24th for final review and adoption. We are hoping that by giving ourselves another couple weeks here, that the variety of unknowns that still exist in the process will be cleared up over these next 2 weeks. Mr. Forbes will describe some of those unknowns here shortly. We feel like this will help us to have the most up-to-date information we can prior to final adoption, and will also allow us to make as thoughtful decisions as possible. As we plan our annual budget, we consider several factors as part of the process each year. In the end, we want to ensure that all students have access to a strong education program and a wide variety of experiences that we offer to our students, adults, and families, while still being mindful of the cost to our community taxpayers. There is a balance we are attempting to strike here, where all students are in a position to be successful and have their needs met, while not overburdening our families with a levy increase they cannot manage. We look at a variety of things each year as we prepare and work our way through the budget process. One of them is student needs and enrollment. Our enrollment has plateaued over the past few years, with some even slight increases here and there along the way. Our projections show that our enrollment appears to remain steady over the next few years. We also look at academic and district priorities. Through our long-term planning, we have identified the following focus areas: literacy, curriculum review, academic and behavioral interventions, social emotional learning through Leader in Me, and also planning for upgraded facilities. We want our budget to align with these priorities and support meaningful work in these areas moving forward. Student services, we absolutely consider the needs of our students with disabilities, English language learners, those who require speech, occupational and physical therapy, as well as other student populations in need of support. We also look at operating costs. Each year, our faculty and staff brings with it adjustments in both salary and benefits. We absolutely account for those. We also look at supplies and materials and account for the cost of items like textbooks, technology, and other educational materials. We look at the utilities that we all have and all organizations have: electricity, gas, water, and other essential services. We also take into account our transportation, as well as the provisions in the updated contract with First Student that was renegotiated about a year ago. We also look at facilities and allocating funds for ongoing maintenance and necessary repairs. As you know, we have a couple different things going on with capital projects. Our larger capital project involving Proposition 1 maintenance items. This was approved by our community in December, and we look forward to getting that going to make sure that our facilities are in a good place. We are also utilizing the 100K capital outlays each year. As a result of this work, in our school buildings continue to be warm, safe, secure, and dry. Our reimbursement aid on such work is 82.7%. We also look at both state and federal funding to have a clear picture as possible of what our allocations will ultimately be. The timing of the New York State budget is not always helpful, and often we do not have final aid numbers by the time we adopt our final budget. It is possible this might be the case again this year. The budget is currently late, but we hope that adding this additional meeting will counteract that pattern. We look at local taxes. Again, we attempt to balance all of the experiences we offer to students with the cost to our community. We also look at other revenue streams and maximizing funding coming into the district. This year we're looking particularly at reimbursement through Chautauqua County for UPK services, also our general BOCES reimbursements, as well as grants particularly attached to special education. Our discussion tonight moves the conversation forward as we make our way towards final adoption on April 24. Any numbers shared tonight represent where we currently are in the process, not the numbers that we will eventually land on and agree to when we officially adopt. During our process, we are open and listen to and take into account any feedback from any members of our school community. As always, feel free to reach out to me or Mr. Forbes directly, or contact us through the district or business offices with comments, questions, concerns, or ideas. Although, again, the budget is currently a work in progress, we do have an update tonight on where we currently stand, and for that, we turn it over to Mr. Forbes.
So first of all, tonight you have, each board member has at their seat the budget information booklet. This is the historical data on three main areas: taxes, personnel, and then other information which kind of lumps together a bunch of different things like bonds, BOCES expenses, transportation, tuition, and those kinds of things. So that's for your information and for you to review when you have time. Secondly, we're going to take a look at our budget as it stands today, and as Dr. Ziliak has already outlined, this is not the final. That will be happening on April 24th. This is where we stand today, and it's part of the process. As we work through that, you understand where we are and where we've been and where we're going. So we'll go through the slides very similar to the budget workshop last week, just with updated information since then. We do have a number of remaining unknowns. Equalization rates and assessments, those are typically tax levy changes, so that would be in August when we set the tax levy, so I would classify those as ongoing and not final. Our final BOCES costs, typically this is an area that's in flux. The high-cost special ed students have a tendency to be a little bit transient. We're also taking a look at alt ed placements, still working on some of our computer and technology information to try to whittle that down to the final cost. As Dr. Ziliak mentioned, we're also working with Chautauqua County and New York State to set up a classroom at the Wheelock School. There is a tuition or a rate setting unit, tuition rate setting unit for the state that will provide a reimbursement rate for the district if that's approved. We have the approval on the class, we don't have the approval on the rate yet, and from that we're able to bill back to the county any eligible student within that program. So that could be significant revenue for us depending on what the rate is and depending on the final enrollment from Mrs. Piper. We also have not accounted for the emergency phone project yet, as that's an ongoing discussion as to the nature of the scope and timing. Final transportation costs, as part of our RFP last year for transportation with first student, there's a provision to build in a refund or rebate on certain costs. So we're taking a look at that. It's depending on number of runs, location, students traveling, and so on. So that is a process. And if we don't have the ability to apply it this year, we do have the ability to take a look at applying it within the remaining contract years. We also don't have final staffing at this point. As Dr. Ziliak mentioned, we do not have the final state aid figures yet. The next page shows the proposed budget expenditure summary. And what we have here is the left-hand column is last year's budget or current year budget. The middle column is what was given to the board at the workshop meeting last week. The right-hand column is where we are today. So essentially, we've reduced another $122,000 from what you saw last Tuesday. Breakdown of expenditures by area and percent of budget. Salaries are 49.84%, benefits are 19.74%. So we're in that 70% range again for salary and benefits, which is essentially a locked-in number. You can see the rest of the distribution across the expenditure areas: equipment, materials, supplies, contractual expense, BOCES services, and our debt. How do we get to where we are today? In the budget process, the initial footprint is where I take everything that we have, all the codes across my whole document, and put in what I think it might be the case at that point in time. From there, we take a look at shifting any salaries that we can to our grants, taking a look obviously at any cuts, any retirements, any ads, any requests from the principals that we can bring in, and those kinds of things. And through that process, we're able to reduce our initial footprint, all of these areas. $766,000, which is a shift to our grants, which is our title grants and our 611 and 619 special education grants. As you know, the rescue plan money has expired, and so that's no longer part of our budget process. Other key things in there we're carrying, we reduced $150,000 from our original equipment request, $270,000 from our contractual request, and our benefits are down to $179,000 from the initial request. Part of that is shifting some of that to grants. Part of that is doing the actual count on what coverages are being held by the employees and getting the rates on that. Salary and benefits, overall, we're up 5.52%. On the instructional side, we are negotiating with the Fredonia Teachers Association, so we do have to have a placeholder in for that. On the non-instructional side, we have Salary Support Staff Association contract is also under negotiation, so there's a placeholder for that. And the number reflects a number of additional aides at the primary elementary level that were added over the course of last year. Next page is our staffing. We did have 5 instructional positions, the high school principal that we've taken out, and we budgeted replacements for each of those. 5 of the people that are retiring were eligible for staff incentives through their contracts, and so we've accounted for that in this budget. Taking a look at this, the benefit summary, you can see the cost through the associated retirement systems, employees and teachers retirement, Social Security, which of course is tied to any salaries, our comp, our life insurance, unemployment, long-term disability, and group health. The big one there is obviously health insurance. We're up about 4.5% through the consortium this year, so that's reflected in there as well. Equipment, materials, and supplies as a group, we're up $259,000, which looks like a high percentage again because it's 27%, but really it's only, in a $30 million budget, it's only $1 million worth of expenses, so not a lot of movement there. And the next slide shows the equipment requests that we currently have in the budget by department. See custodial maintenance, $12,000, and $119,000, which is replacement of tractor and a truck. Curriculum cycle, which is our continuing program with the music department. We budget money every year to keep their instrument replacement cycle going. You can see across the instructional areas the requests that were made at Wheelock Elementary, Middle, and High School. Computer technology, we have $17,500 in there. And I think I mentioned at the workshop meeting, it was a much larger number in the equipment side, but we've been able to shift that to the BOCES side, which becomes aidable as we purchase equipment through that line item. Contractual expense in BOCES services, we're up $362,000, 210 in contractual, and 151 in our BOCES services. BOCES services would encompass any student-related situation like alt ed, high-cost special ed, different guidance programs, different library programs, things of that nature, and also all of our computer technology support, like our payroll system, the Raptor system at the doors, and things like that. Next slide just shows the major impacts currently in the budget. So we're looking at computer system instruction, we're up $116,000, which reflects what I mentioned a moment ago, that we shifted money over. And that's to try to keep a replacement cycle going on our Chromebooks and iPads, also the addition of a couple of large screens for the teaching aspect, and also a bunch of parts to repair the current Chromebooks. Transportation, we're up $243,000, in part because of the contract rate, in part because we've added additional runs during the course of the year, a couple of which we'll have on the agenda in a few minutes. And then we had to add for the Proposition 1, $395,000 is an interfund transfer. This goes in as an expense in 25-26, but because aid is paid on a categorical aid such as the project, the aid doesn't come back till 26-27, so there's an impact of that in the first year. Next slide is just a summary of our existing debt and the interfund transfer I just mentioned. And if you go to the slide after that, it gives a summary of the projects that we still have on the books and what the interest and principal payments are for those. Let's see. On the revenue side, the next slide, you'll see the breakdown between state, local, federal, and fund balance and the tax levy. In this proposed budget, the state aid represents 49.5% of our revenue stream. Our tax levy represents 47.03% of the revenue stream. And the balance is made up of $495,000 of local sources, things like tuition, admissions, interest income from our investments, $100,000 federal aid, which is our Medicare reimbursement, and also we're currently applying $750,000 of fund balance towards the budget. So much like you did with the expense side, just to show a breakdown of percent, as I mentioned a moment ago, estimated tax levy is 47.4, state is 49.51, Medicare 0.25, local sources 1.27, and the remaining 1.93 is made up by the fund balance. The next few slides are just for board information. They contain the source for our local revenue. Taking a look through, you have pilot agreements, the student tuition, which I mentioned, interest income, which I mentioned, our rent down at Wheelock School. Those are all part of the local. There's 2 pages of that. And then a page that shows our state and federal sources. All of the revenues listed are based on the governor's proposal in January. Our foundation aid is our basic operating aid, is not tied directly to any categorical situation. All the remaining aids on the page, from excess cost of computer software, hardware, those are all based on expenditures in one year with the aid coming back in the subsequent year. So they're considered to be the categorical section of the state revenue picture. Also in this budget, we have a capital outlay project. $100,000, we're projecting right now to do field work on the athletic fields at the Main Street campus. For any $100,000 capital outlay project you do outside, you need to have $10,000 worth of work inside and a minimum. So we're looking to do some flooring in the elementary school. There's also required New York State architectural fee as part of that. As Dr. Ziliak had mentioned up front, we do get 82.7% revenue back from the state on that, so our cost is not the full $100,000 amount once we get the revenue back. Next slide just outlines some of the shared services that the district is participating in right now. We're in consortiums for health insurance, workers' comp, electric, and natural gas. 3 of the 4 of those are through BOCES. We also participate in the cooperative equipment program with BOCES and the central business office for our payroll. We do have a municipal agreement with the village of Fredonia for the fuel for our district vehicles. We share athletic programs with other neighboring districts. We have transportation currently that we're sharing with 3 other local districts. We still have a part-time art teacher position, which is shared with Forestville, and also we're sharing a special education child, one going each way with Forestville as well. The tax levy limit is currently for our district at 4.65% for this year. It originally was brought in as a 2% cap, but due to allowable exceptions, it's not 2% necessarily. Currently, this budget, we are over that amount, and we can exceed the cap if we were to do a 60% majority, or we need to make further reductions to get at or below the 4.65%. If our budget was to be defeated twice, we would have to comply with the administrative cap. This cannot exceed the administrative portion of the prior year, which is 11.51% of the budget. We're currently 19,000 below that cap, and in compliance should we need to go there. Next slide is tax levy limit. The X's on the right-hand side represent the years that we were below the cap number. In each of the years we've been at or below the cap number. And you can see that if you take a look across a number of years here, that generally our tax levy percentage has been fairly low, and we've only had 1 year since 2013-14 that we've exceeded 1.73%, and that was in the 23-24 school year. So we've done a good job of maintaining the percentage on the tax levy. What's left to do? Taking a look at this slide, you can see that the maximum tax levy we're allowed is $17,958,000. Our current proposed tax levy is $18,242,000, which means to get to the cap, you would need to reduce another $284,000. If you decided that you wanted to go all the way to 0, it would be another $1,082,000 out of the budget, or landing somewhere in between. It would depend on what that number becomes. To get to the cap, we would have to either make additional reductions, find additional revenue sources, or apply additional fund balance. That I would not be recommending of the 3 choices. And we'll continue to work on it. As I mentioned, this is not the final, and we'll still have some room to change. Next slide is our comparative tax levy, just for informational purposes. From 2018 to 2019 to 2024-25, our average tax levy increase was 1.12%. Our 3-year average is 1.9%. And then the next slide is just comparative budget data showing the percent of change over time from 2015 to 16. So again, this is not our final, this is where we are today, and we wanted to bring the board up to date with that information.
Great, thanks, Mr. Forbes. Questions from the board?
Yeah, you mentioned the transportation and a refund or rebate, and I'm wondering, what's that about? How is it different from aid?
It's different from aid because it's coming directly back from first student. As part of the contract, RFP, and then discussion, you move some percentages around, and part of that became, what would you think about a rebate if these certain criteria are met or not met? So that's how we arrived at it.
And you mentioned we could possibly use it this year or save it, and what are the factors in that decision?
That would be up to the district. The first student is willing to do it in any fashion that we wanted. If we had wanted to split it over the 5 years of the contract, we could have done that. We opted not to because of where we were at that point. And now, this year, or maybe next year, we might need to have some additional funds reduced. So we kind of held on to it as an ace in the hole.
And do we know approximately what that amount would be?
It's about $200,000 if you were maximized through the course of the contract.
So would that offset the increase then, or no? You can't use it for?
If we applied it all, it would offset most of what would get you to the cap. Dr. Zillow and I talked about that, and it's probably not a good idea to use it all at the same time and kind of spread it out a little bit if we can. So we're continuing to look at the other areas that we can look at as additional cuts or revenue stream.
John, as far as the equipment, I know you had mentioned the pickup truck, 2 tractors, correct?
It's a zero-turn lawnmower,
Okay,
our mid-size tractor, and then also a 1-ton dump with a salt spreader and a 9-foot plow.
with the tractor, any guess how many hours are on it and what year?
Offhand, I don't know the year. We got off the schedule of replacement of equipment a number of years ago, so right now we're holding it in. Obviously, it's a big number. So, I mean, it's gonna be part of the conversation moving forward, but at some point, in my mind, sooner than later, we need to get back on some kind of cycle.
Sure.
And the thing with our vehicles is they're not a lot of mileage, it's the use of the vehicles.
Correct.
Because
I
we're
remember
plowing
saying
the lots, and it's hard use on the trucks.
Thank you, sir.
And Dr. Zillow, could you address a little bit about the teachers we have retiring and that decision about whether they need to be replaced or not replaced?
Yeah, so as I mentioned, our population remains fairly steady right now, and the projections are that it will remain in the ballpark of where it is currently. We're also really trying to look at, how do we maximize those opportunities for students? How do we ensure that we're providing a strong educational program? I've had a chance with Mr. Paschke to look at the high school schedule. Just out of the gate, there aren't any easy reductions there, partly because the high school schedule is a lot different per se than the elementary schedule. There's a lot of moving parts. Each course, let's say in a science, earth science, it could have students from different grades who are part of that course. It's not necessarily that one particular grade of 103 kids need to fit into that class. There's also the variability in the high school schedule of different course offerings, different course requests, and just because we necessarily have 3 sections of a course instead of 4, let's say, it doesn't mean that all the students could get to that reduced number of sections. So it's a little bit more complicated than you might think. For the grade 5 replacement, it just so happens this year that the grade 4 going grade 5 is 120 students currently. It would be hard to make a reduction in grade 5 right at the moment. However, as we said, it's a work in progress. I feel like the first shoe to fall is really that accurate foundation age number that seems to be elusive in New York State over the last couple of years. For all practical purposes, we should have that number by April 1st. We typically don't. We don't have it as of yet. There's been, I think, 3 or 4 extensions to the budget currently. That number would be very helpful in projecting the larger budget, but also indicating where we might need to be with some of the bigger ticket items, which would include teacher salary and benefits. So we're working through it, taking it one step at a time. We're not trying to get ahead of ourselves. At the same time, we're not afraid to engage in conversations about whatever the options might be to get us to a number that we eventually need to be at.
The state did do an extender through tomorrow, until tomorrow. That's the last one. And from all the things that I've seen, it's not education that's holding it up at all. It's some legal stuff. I'm not quite sure exactly, but dealing with the courts.
Do you think we'll have it by April 24th?
There's no way to know how that'll roll, but I know that in the articles I've seen, they made a big deal about the legislative body wanting to be done before Passover and Easter, and that, of course, is very soon. So.
The nice thing about April 24th is that it does give us the most time we could possibly have for these things to resolve themselves. So we'll be up, needing to adopt the budget within a day of that mark. So we should have the most up-to-date information we can possibly have at that moment.
Any questions? Or?
Okay. Can you just talk about the capital fund, so we're spending the $395, and then that depletes our capital fund, is that correct?
In so many words, yes.
Mhm.
Yes.
Okay, and then we talked about the only way to start building that is from our general, no, from
Yeah,
our.
you would have to take any surplus that you have in the general fund and designate it through board motion to the capital reserve. Your current one is set up to be 750,000 maximum. If you were, and you can't, if you zero it out, you can't start at zero, go back to 750, it's whatever's left. And then if you hit that at some point, then you have to do another community improvement and annual budget vote to create another one.
Okay,
And you're not locked into what number that would be. We chose 750 last time, based on what we've done before. So.
okay.
I'm a little confused by the capital reserve fund, because isn't that money that we have set aside in a fund, but yet you have to treat it as an expense?
We have to bring it
Send it to
in over
the-
to the capital fund, which is where all the project expenses do, so it's not a direct transfer. So we have to bring it in to general fund and then expend it over to capital fund.
And then we get reimbursed next year on it?
Yes.
Great.
They'll be able to start,
That's
and it
fantastic.
depends on the timing of when you borrow,
Uh-huh.
how the aid flows, so.
Right, okay,
Municipal Solutions is our advisor for that. And
yeah,
we had multiple conversations along the way, in fact, today, had a couple emails going back and forth just to make sure. If you were to say, let's do something different with the 395, can we push any of it out, reduce it, start it later? It's a trickle down through the rest of the debt of the
Mhm.
project, so you have to be very careful on
yeah.
that.
So because we haven't had a capital project in such a long time, I wasn't aware that we had to chalk it up as an expense to get it
Yeah.
reimbursed.
And this is a little bit different based upon what we have in reserve
Yeah.
and what we're doing, so it's a larger
Okay.
amount than we've had in some time.
Right, all right. Other questions?
Yeah,
Somebody over here?
John, can
Aaron?
you speak to, in this, we look at this in a vacuum, and can you talk about where we've been over the last 5 or 6 years as compared to what's happening in the world around us, the inflation rates, how that affects the
Well,
bottom
if
line?
you take a look at the comparative slides with the tax levy percentage increases, you've had a number of years that you've been at 0 or below 1. And so think about your own budget at home. How many years in a row can you say, I'm not changing anything, and then here you are. And obviously, prices have increased dramatically in the last couple of years. And you have to pay those prices in some form, whether it's through transportation, fuel, natural gas, electric, all those things go up. Union contracts go up, benefits go up, and our fund balance went down, so you don't have that cushion necessarily to rely on as much as we could have in the past. That's where we are now, so.
Yeah, it's a tough spot, because we've averaged 1.1% for 10 years, increased taxes. And yet, what do we have, inflation and 22, maybe 5%, and 8% the next year,
And COVID,
and COVID, and, I mean, due to COVID, right, that was a contributor, but, you can see where there's erosion, I guess.
and this year's, each year kind of brings its own personality to it, where you, as you go through the process, you go, okay, that's up, or that's down, and you kind of working through, and this year it just seemed like for a period of time, it was like, oh, I cut 30,000 today, by the end of the day, I had 30,000 for something else, it's just like walking back and forth on that, so.
Mhm.
But that's the challenge of it on every year, and we're not done yet, so.
Other questions?
So we put in the 750,000 fund balance, but we don't really want to end up spending that, is that?
Well, whatever you put it for fund balance, you have to hopefully make up in what's surplus during that year. So obviously, the lower the number, the better. And in a situation like we're in now, we're running a little bit tighter on some of the line items. So if it goes positively, we're good. If it goes negatively, now we're eroding that a little further. So you're getting to that point where it becomes a concern. Obviously, if things roll out really good in the next 2 weeks, I'm gonna try to reduce that and get to the whatever percentage levy the board wants to have. But that would be the ultimate goal, is to get that down from where it's been.
Other comments, or? No? Okay, now it's a work in progress, a lot of unknowns at this point, and it's not helpful that the state doesn't give us some clarity on foundation aid and on revenue, so the revenue's the big unknown right now, so. Thanks, Mr. Forbes, and we'll keep chipping away. Dr. Ziliak, anything else, or?
I think that summed it up.
Okay. All right, well, let's move on. Next, we need to approve a 31-day emergency transportation contract, Corvus Bus, for March 26, 2025. Have a motion?
So moved.
A support and a second?
Second.
Mr. Marshall, thank you. Dr. Siliak or John? John.
All right, so what we had was a 31-day emergency contract a month and a half or so ago, which was a foster placement. So we did it as a 31-day to make sure that the placement was gonna be solid. And so that expired. We had 2 days of what would be our allowable second 31-day emergency contract, and the situation did change. But we still need to approve the second contract to get the 2 days of aid for that. So that's what we're doing with letter B.
Okay. Any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? And we have one more contract here, again, Corvus Bus, but this is for April 1st, 25. Have a motion to bring that to the
So
table?
moved.
Ms. Gallo, a second?
Second.
Ms. Porter, thanks. John?
All right, so this is the next piece of that situation where they were able to find another placement for the student in a different location, and so because it's a different location, we have to do a different contract. And again, I'm running it as a 31-day, just to make sure this is the placement before we go with the full out bid for it, so.
Okay, questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? And last under business is to approve a contract for Lake Shore Central School District for data privacy and security support at a cost of $7,500 is submitted. Could I have a motion to bring that to the table?
So moved.
Mr. Timm, a second.
Second.
Ms. Helen, thank you. Dr. Zilios.
Yeah, this is an exciting opportunity and represents a really solid bang for our buck as a district. You probably remember a couple years back, we had some transition in our technology department. We were lucky enough to have Ryan left as well as Andy Willock come on with the district in those positions. And Andy serves as our data protection officer. Now, there are a number of nuances to this job, and it's one of those, the devil is really in the details. There's a lot to manage, and this was not something that was necessarily Andy's skill set coming into the district. So he has done a nice job adapting and adjusting and learning, but especially with recent events, not any fault of the district, with some data breaches being in the mix. We wanted to make sure that we were doing everything we possibly can to make sure our data is secure within the district. Lake Shore does have an employee that I would say is perhaps the authority, at least on this side of the state, if not maybe in New York State in this area. They've been nice enough to offer some support to a few other districts. We are part of this if this is approved. And this includes the person working with Andy to come in and do an audit of all of our current systems and protocols. And then there would be monthly meetings over the next year to look at that audit and make necessary adjustments. So again, for a fairly small fee in the grand scheme of things, this will be extremely helpful to us and really make sure we were doing everything that we can do to make sure our data is secure as humanly possible. Any questions?
No questions? Okay, yeah, I mean, data is increasingly becoming a big issue in our society, so it'd be good to have our data secure. Yep. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, well, we're through personnel, through new business, back to our second round. Anybody would like to speak? Or? No. Okay, all right, just want to make sure. All right, move on to our superintendent's report. Dr. Zilios.
Yeah, a couple things for your consideration. Again, not for approval tonight, but one of the things you have with you is the potential draft calendar for the 25-26 school year. There are a few pieces here that are typically of interest to the Board of Education. I've had a chance to review this with FTA leadership, also shared this with our administrators through our administrative council. And just to highlight a couple things here, we really start by just kind of rolling the calendar from last year to this year. One of the things that is an ongoing discussion is the 2-week break at Easter versus the split break in February, and then another week at Easter. Remember that in our contractual language, our proposal eventually to the Board of Education is a joint effort with the FTA. Their membership is roughly about 70% of individuals who would like to see the 2 weeks at Easter continue. The rationale for that, for most teachers, is that in between Christmas and Easter, this provides a long period of time of fairly solid attendance days. There are some interruptions, but not nearly as much as if a week was in the middle of it. When they feel like they really make progress and are able to really get the students locked in and really focused on their growth during this time. Questions usually come from the Board of Education. We had some questions from Mrs. Fortner recently. I reached out to Mr. Paschke and Ms. Aiken in the high school office to try to get a better understanding of the attendance of BOCES, particularly in the first week of our break where BOCES is open. We are technically on break. We do provide transportation for those students. They do have access to transportation and the programs. BOCES is open during that week, but we wanted to get a better sense of what that attendance looks like. Ms. Aiken in particular is working with BOCES representatives to bring some information forward around that. So that is in process right now. But in this draft, we do have the 2 week at Easter in place, at least for the moment. A few years ago, we wanted to try to create some additional time for professional development. At that time, we added 4 half-days to the calendar. This year, that was scaled back to 2 days. We do have 2 half-days for professional development in this calendar, one in November and one in February. I know there is some debate about the effectiveness of instruction on a half-day, but at the end of the day, we are looking to create some additional opportunities, especially for some of those initiatives that we have going in the district, Leader in Me, work around literacy, work around potentially curriculum review or intervention. So we have those in the calendar at this time. If you'd just like to take a minute to review what you have in front of you, I'd be willing to respond to any questions I can, and we also have Dr. Wright here as well.
So you said we have 2 fewer half-days in this calendar?
So that was 2 years ago, we had 4. This year, we reduced to 2, and for next year, at least in this draft, the 2 remain.
Okay.
Or 2 and 2 half-days? Is that what's in this calendar?
Say that again?
I see 2 days that are green, so those are professional development, right?
Correct.
And then I see 2 half-days that are green.
So take me back to the 2. The 2 days I was referring to are November 25th and February 13th.
Right, we have November 10th and March 13th, our full-day professional development.
Yes, so November 10th is a full superintendent's conference day, and so is the 13th as well, and our other conference days are to start the school year in August. Sorry, I wasn't with you for a minute there.
So I'll ask my annual question about the January midterm week, especially with this year with the weather complication. So, I mean, the kids have 2 weeks off at Christmas. Then they come back for 2 weeks, and they have a week off.
Yep.
Essentially a week off. Is that still, we're still weighing that, and we still, teachers still prefer that, and that's the bigger value than classroom time?
Yeah, I think, this has gone back and forth. I think there was a year that we had students in session during this time, although primarily they were still used for midterm examinations. I think there is I would say, Mr. Paschke, a majority of the high school faculty that believes that those midterms are essential to the learning that takes place over the course of the year. However, we have been talking about attendance. We have been talking about the importance of students being in school. I think there's definitely room for discussion here. The way the calendar is laid out, that is really the January Regents date. We don't necessarily have to have a decision about what those days look like currently, especially with the new high school principal coming on board, who might help us be able to facilitate a conversation and a decision that makes sense for where we are now. So, I don't know, Mr. Paschke, anything to add to that?
I think it's a good time to have that discussion with the new principal coming and look at the value of taking 4 days off versus having instructional time. I think that this year with the extra days off, with the snow days, I think some of the staff started to have some second thoughts about those days. I'm not saying everybody changed their mind, but I think there were some staff that were like, you know, we had a bunch of days off, and it wasn't great that it happened to occur in conjunction with those days that we already had off, which pushed the exams a little bit further, and so instead of having 4 days, we ended up having 6 days without classes, which was considerable.
And the Lunar New Year was in there this year. Is that a factor?
Correct. So
In
no,
this- in
if
this
you,
calendar?
it's actually, now, Lunar New Year is quite a range in where it would fall each year. It's actually
President's Day.
February 17th in
So
this
it's
calendar.
President's Day, then Lunar New Year the next day. So they kind of get a February break there, a little one, 4-day weekend.
Yeah, circling back to half days, you know, with the professional development, I feel like the professional development we're doing here is worthy, and that's saying something over my years with professional development. And I don't question the, you know, the instruction on a half day, but I would like some data on the attendance. I'd like to see what the attendance is, because my gut tells me that it's a drop in attendance, and we want to encourage attendance, don't we? So, you know, I reiterate, I think the professional development's valuable, but somehow we can look at the attendance on those days.
Yep, we can do that.
Anything else on the calendar?
I don't believe so. Okay. This will be kind of out there for consideration. We'll probably bring it back on the April 29th agenda. I think at that point we would look to adopt. So we'll go from there. In consent tonight was the approval of the Quest backpacking dates again this year. I just felt I need to shout out to the Cobbs, who continue to make a huge commitment to the district for this program. They continue to hold parent meetings, provide instruction, a lot of the logistics that is really incredible that goes into pulling off a variety of hikes, culminating with a 4-day hike. So thanks to the Cobbs for their continued work, and also the student leaders who are part of this. We have students participating from other schools and adults at those schools who are involved as well. So by no means is it just the Cobbs, but really they are the catalyst that makes this all happen. So thank you to them. Also just wanted to mention in front of you, last week BOCES had their annual meeting. There is agenda that they shared in the blue handout along with their annual report. It's just a really nice evening in which it starts with all the programs, having tables or areas that you can go and kind of experience what each of those programs does throughout the years, hear a little bit from the students, see their projects or their portfolios, and just have a nice time interacting. I spent some time with cosmetology as well as culinary, while I was there. Our students seem to be having a great experience, had a lot of positive things to say about what they've learned and what they plan to do moving forward in those areas. And then the BOCES meeting, was fairly brief. It was about an hour long. David O'Rourke kind of reviewed their annual report and just shared, some of the trends in their programming and what they're trying to do moving forward. One of the things that they are doing for next school year, which is exciting, is they're expanding the New Visions program. And they're gonna have a class that'll meet on the campus of SUNY Fredonia, and it will be geared towards future teachers. So students will go, spend time on campus, get involved in coursework and experiences that would prepare them and get them thinking about a career in teaching. And I thought that was a creative way to get students thinking about this profession and being part of what we all do to help students be successful and put students in a great place for success now and beyond. So that was interesting to hear about. Feel free to take a look, and if you have any questions, I'd be more than happy to try to answer them, or we could relay those back to BOCES. There's a lot going on and a lot of information that you'll see within this. So, but it was a nice evening. A couple board members in particular wanted to say thank you to Fredonia. We, I think, are leading the charge on board members attending the regular BOCES meetings. Very appreciative and thankful of everybody who's been able to attend. And just like us, they love for people to attend their meeting and hear about what's going on. So they wanted to say thank you to everybody for making that a priority this year.
Great.
Nicely done.
Great, great.
That's all I have,
That's
unless
it?
there's any other questions.
Yep. Any other questions, or? No? Okay. All right, on to announcements. So, we've talked about April 24th. Do we have to formally say yes to that, I guess? Is April?
I don't think we need an official motion. I guess I would like, confirmation that that would be
Straw poll?
acceptable.
Is everybody okay with April 24th? You're out of town, okay. Everybody else go with it? Okay. So, we'll have a meeting on April 24th to finalize the budget. We also have a meeting, a regular meeting on Tuesday, April 29th, here in the high school library at 6. So that leads us into any other general comments from the board. I know, but speaking of kudos for us going to BOCES meetings, Ms. Pello, did you attend
Yeah.
one a few weeks ago?
I did, and I didn't bring the materials from it, but I took a few notes. They did a really nice special ed presentation. That was the big presentation of the night, and it actually was really, they have some excellent programs that probably we're benefiting from as well, but they talked about mostly that they're including music and art in their programming, and it was really, that's really well received, and they were just very excited about that. They talked about early learning in UPK for special ed, and that the need is up and the providers are down. So that was interesting. And they talked about student board members that NISBA will be training. There will be some training through NISBA for that
Oh, good.
coming up.
Okay.
And then the other thing that I thought was interesting that they talked about was that they needed a board retreat, and they had not done one. And so I thought that was interesting that we've now done a few, and
Yeah.
they really talked about how they felt like they needed one. So I thought it was really very, very interesting. I'm glad I went.
That's great.
So,
Thanks for
Yeah.
taking the time.
yeah.
We appreciate it. So, any other general comments from the board? I have to say, I attended the open house, the art open house, with my 6-year-old granddaughter, and I failed miserably at origami. Is that what it's called, origami?
Yeah.
Paper crane, she was rolling her eyes by paper crane, so, but it was a really good event. A lot of people were going, and they're doing a great job in the art department, so that was fantastic. Any,
Well, maybe I will mention the Holocaust Assembly.
oh, did you go?
Yes, and it was wonderful.
That's great,
Yeah, it was a woman whose father
yeah.
had been at Auschwitz. He has passed away, but she beautifully integrated her speaking with video of him addressing school assemblies. And, you know, there's a few immature kids in every assembly, but 99.9% were, of it was so well received. She got 3 ovations, and
Yeah.
I thought the kids were well behaved.
It's great to hear. And that was, that's been going on a while.
Yes,
And
Mr.
we've been doing that
Cashman's.
20 years.
Goodness, 7, I think.
7 years straight. Yeah, that's great. Well, keep going, Mr. Baskey, it's your turn.
Oh, okay. Well, Sheila, thanks for coming.
Yeah, I
I
hope the new
appreciate it.
principal will continue that
And,
tradition.
I mean, honestly, I gotta give credit to the social studies department who have really bolstered this and made sure that they do the legwork to make this happen every year. So that's amazing. Dave Denz in particular was instrumental in booking this particular speaker. So kudos to him. And yeah, I hope that this is something that continues. I don't know how, if all of the kids embrace it, but I think that it's valuable to remember this and keep this in the forefront of people's memory as such an important historic event that really, I think, is an important message for kids in really all grade levels. And I know that at some of the younger levels it's not necessarily appropriate, but the message of being good humans, I think, is really important. And how we act as a society is incredibly important. So I hope it continues. Mr. Johnson, to your comment about the half-day attendance, I just looked up very quickly for the high school. The half-days versus the day before the half-day.
Yeah.
So 2 half-days that we had this year were November 26th and February 14th. On the 26th, we had 140 kids absent in the high school. And the day before that, we had 50 kids absent. On the 14th, we had 136 kids absent. The day before that, we had 36 kids absent.
Wow.
Okay, so there's a significant number of kids who don't attend on a half day in the high school. I didn't look up the others, but I wanted to do that quickly since you mentioned it. What does this say? Oh, over our break, we have our 2-week break coming up. Another thing that I think has been amazing, and this will be our last one, at least with me, is the super mega game club over break. There's something for our kids to do who really don't necessarily want to be at home for 2 weeks. We open up the school, we take a full day, we're playing board games and Dungeons and Dragons, and I buy pizza and wings, and we eat and have fun all day long. Tom Donovan is the owner of that club, if you will, the originator of that club, and it's just been fantastic. It's a niche group that for kids that might not play a sport. Some of them are sports athletes, but it's kind of fun to have a good group of kids to come in and just play some games. And they're playing board games I've never heard of, and they're cool. And so every year I play a different game. I usually get a little Dungeons and Dragons, eat some pizza, so it's fun. So it's a good opportunity for our kids. I just wanted to mention that Kristen Terreri brought in a Buffalo Philharmonic Orchestra member to work with her kids this week, which was amazing. I was able to take about 12 minutes to catch the end of it, but she just did phenomenal work with our kids, and just to be able to bring someone of that status, I guess, into our school and work with our kids was tremendous. We did a Leader in Me workshop with our leadership team this week. Unfortunately, it was during the assembly that we had, so I couldn't be there for it this year, which was heartbreaking, but we got a lot accomplished. As we've been working on Leader in Me, we've been really anxious to get to the point where, here's what we're doing, and having some concrete stuff. So we developed, throughout the day, our team developed a roadmap and a timeline of what we're going to be doing. So starting on April 29th, that's where we're going to be informing the staff of our intention to have a student lighthouse team, which is going to be about student leadership and working with our extracurricular groups first. On the 30th, we're going to be sharing all that information with the community and parents and our staff, and start giving them invitations to our students to apply between May 5th and May 12th to apply to be on this team. And this is not just a team for people that are already leaders, it's a team that's open to all kids. and there's gonna be an application process, an interview process, they're gonna have to get letters of recommendation, and it's exciting that we're at this point to start actually doing some things with this. We'll be selecting team members between the 13th of May and the 19th of May, and then we're gonna launch the team between the 28th of May and through the summer. We're gonna do some training with our team of students, and teaching them about the 7 habits of highly effective people, and kind of hit the ground running with our new principal in the fall, and hopefully take that to new heights. But it's exciting to be at a point where we're gonna be bringing kids on board and giving them opportunities to be leaders in our school. So we're like at that point, so I've just got this excitement for it. I'm sad that I'm not gonna be here next year to see the next piece of it, but I'm sure I'll get updates, so that's exciting. Sorry, I just have quite a few things tonight. AP exams are gonna be starting the first week of May when we get back, and so there's 2 weeks of AP exams. Our senior packets with all the senior information went out today, and if you wanna take one and pass these around, these are all of the senior events for this year. The dates and times and any costs associated with them. If you want to have that information, I would love if you guys want to come to any of the events. You're all welcome, as usual. Also, we have 2 trips coming over our spring break. One is going to Belize, and one is going to France and Spain. And I have the honor of not going, but I get to come in for both trips on 2 different nights at 3 o'clock in the morning to see them off. So I don't get the benefits of the trip, but it's always fun to see the kids at 3 in the morning and get them on their way. So I think that's all I have for tonight, but thank you.
Great.
It was a lot, I apologize. I'm gonna get the elbow and the evil eye from Jamie, I'm sure.
I was smiling the whole time.
Okay.
Your last one, my last one.
Yes, we're graduating together.
We are. That's why, I know, you don't have to admit that's why.
I finally made it. I knew I'd get out of high school one day.
What's the date of that mega day? Is it
Oh, the what?
the mega day, or what did you
Oh,
call
the
it?
mega game day?
Yeah.
That's not on there, but hold on, I can tell you.
It's on a poster, actually, I just saw it on the pillar
Yeah,
right
there's-
up here.
I can look it up.
You can
There-
tell me later.
A
There's a
banner.
poster of me with
Yeah.
my tongue sticking
Flyer.
out over here. You can look at it on your way
Okay.
out.
That's a great program. Ms. Mahomes.
Yes, so I think I had made mention getting them through the last few weeks before break, we have been doing Pride Madness. So every day we recognize different students for demonstrating some Pride characteristics. They're given Pride tickets throughout their day for demonstrating preparedness, respect, integrity, dedication, and/or excellence. And then we pull names at the end and recognize them on the announcement. So that's been kind of exciting, just to kind of continue to encourage those positive behaviors in these last few days leading up to breaks. We recognize teachers too, so that's always fun. They win some prizes also. Speaking of Quest, they started their cooking classes yesterday, had one again today, and we'll welcome in some students from the other districts tomorrow to do their portion of the cooking classes, so that's definitely up and running, going very smoothly. Speaking of clubs, I happened to see our Service Learning Club today continuing the good work that Kristen Tomaszewski's kids did in the Edge, organizing it. And Lisa Forbes and Shannon Marsh were helping the kids continue with the organization and restocking some of our hygiene products, which are always readily used to support kids, throughout our district. So that was exciting to see. And we will have our Leader in Me leadership team meeting tomorrow with our coach. A couple of weeks ago, our team took a trip to Sweet Home to visit the good work that they've been doing. They're a bit ahead of us as far as their rollout and the number of years that they have been implementing some Leader in Me ideals. But it was great to sit in on their leadership team meeting and see the great things that they've been able to put in place and the excitement in the kids. We came back and then had some work time to put together a presentation to share with staff, which we just did last week. So we're kind of continuing with that momentum too. I think I had shared some time ago that we started some greeters in our building with lanyards and badges. So those were teacher selected rather, and now we are expanding to have an application process where, and we have some students that have taken the application and put them in. So they're seeing now, because they've seen the kids scattered throughout our building, the excitement in that. So I'm encouraged to see other kids that would like to participate in that way. And some of the ones that apply, you wouldn't necessarily think, so that's exciting too.
That's great.
That's all I have.
Yeah, any type of leadership's great.
Any type of what? Oh, yes.
Leadership.
Exactly,
and,
that's
so
right.
it's Fantastic. Thank you, Ms. Wilkins. Mr. Golger.
Yeah, so our journey with Leader in Me continues this week as well. Our coach is in town, but next year we are going to start what's called the Direct Teach. So every day, every student is going to have a short 5 to 7 minute lesson about the 7 habits. Putting first things first, thinking win-win. And right now our teachers have had some exposure to the curriculum. It's a digital online curriculum. There's a teacher manual, and there's also a student workbook that goes along with it. It's full of social stories and cute videos and little activities that the kids can do. So our timeline is a little bit more aggressive because we're going to start that in September, because that kind of is the foundation that the kids need before they go to the middle school and high school. So our teachers are ready for that. We're excited. And all they asked for from me was a dedicated time in the day. So we kind of tweaked our schedule a little bit. So every day from 8:55 to 9:10 is going to be Leader in Me time. It's when every kid in the building, in every classroom, is doing the little 5 to 7 minute lesson. So it'll give me an opportunity to, no matter where I am, what classroom, we'll all be doing the same thing. And it is kind of aligned grade levels. It's like the same theme, but it hits it harder as you get older. So we're excited for that. So that's our journey in Leader in Me. And then the only other thing that we have is we're celebrating our good behavior as well with our Billy program. Friday we have an assembly where we're doing minute-to-minute games, where we throw all the Billies in the bucket, pulling kids' names out for the kind acts that they've done, inviting them on the stage. They're going to compete against their peers and earn some prizes, and teachers are going to be involved with that as well. So we're really excited for that. That's what we have going on at the elementary school.
Is that on Friday?
It's Friday, yeah, Friday 9:15. It's
That's a great carrot to get them to come in, right?
yeah, you're right. So we'll get them in on the last day. They're excited for that.
Yeah. Thanks for all three of you, the teamwork, the collaboration on Leader in Me. It's exciting. Ms. Farrell.
Thanks. I wanted to mention that the High School Unified Club has planned and sponsored an Inclusion Spirit Week, which is happening this week. So there's different themes for things to wear every day, your team, or red and pink today.
Love and kindness today.
Showing your love. So that's going on, and there's also some videos being pushed out, which I think is really much more powerful and important to just share with students that are along that theme of inclusion. So good stuff happening there. We're in full swing with Unified Basketball, which is always very exciting. We'll be gearing up for our local Special Olympics event, which will be, I think it's something around the 29th of May, but late in May on the Fredonia College campus. And other than that, we're continuing planning for the rest of this year, looking at the extended school year program, and continuing to refine our continuing services for next year.
Great, yeah. Yeah, things are wrapping up when they're not wrapping up, but getting close with Special Olympics as mentioned, so that's a spring
It all
event.
happens quickly, so.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you, Ms. Farrell. Dr. Wright.
All right, thank you. I want to give a shout out to Mimi Joint. She's a high school math teacher who's really spearheaded her love of agriculture and bringing it here with the garden club, and our students actually, she and I apologize, I don't know the names of the other faculty that have been really side by side helping with her, but they've actually gone out and tapped trees and collected sap, and
Dan Dalster back.
Yep, oh, thank you.
Kristen T's class with
Yep.
the making.
And they've been making maple sugar candies and things like that. That's just the recent one, but they're slogging out there in the snow and doing all of that, and they've got lots of different ideas and projects and things underway. And she's really a self-starter, going to other schools and listening to other things. I know they took a trip to East Aurora, and she looks at lots of different farm grants and things like that. So it's been really wonderful just to, see the excitement, enthusiasm of bringing something and helping all of us to be aware of some of these things that, is certainly not under my purview. So I just wanted to give a shout out to her and the kids and the adults that have been really doing this, and to see the excitement with it. Along the venue of Leader in Me and our students and leadership and all of that, we opened it up to a student committee for our principal hiring process. And a huge thank you to both Lindsay Moon and Pat Newell. We worked together to refine a survey to solicit what do they want in their high school principal. And thank you to Mr. Paschke. It was Pat and Lindsay's idea, let's see if we can put out in the Fredonia Forward, make a couple announcements, see if we can have time in that homeroom block to do that. And 293 students responded to the survey. And there was a spot in there where they could say if they would like to be on the interview committee, if the date and time worked for them. 54 students said they would. And of that, we did have 18 participants, and Lindsay facilitated that particular group. Students could also offer their own original question that they would want asked, and 100 students submitted a question. And it was, what was really neat too, data-wise, is that they really fell into 5 specific themes. So the questions were very much like there was several questions, about one theme that were very, very similar. So it was really kind of neat to see that too, from what do they want to know? So the students were just so grateful, and it was just so fun to have them like reaching out, like, thank you for this opportunity, and I don't always have a chance to work directly with students, so it was really nice to have that as well. So they were, they're ready for this Lighthouse team and the leadership role, and they're ecstatic about it and invested, and they're so very proud of their school. So that was just really a beautiful, wonderful thing to see. We're continuing with the PK3 literacy instructional best practices, the new requirement by New York State. They had told us that attestation that we need to do is due September 1st annually. All schools have to do it, brand new requirement. That they would have that rubric out on February 9th. Well, it came out yesterday, so we finally had a chance to look at it, examine it. They've added to it. It's a bit more robust than we were originally thinking it might be, so now we will get the attestation team together, and again, we're opening that up to all PK6, because we do believe this literacy requirement will be probably aging up to all grades. So we want to make sure that all of us understand, if one of our goals is that horizontal and vertical alignment, we want to make sure that we're having those conversations early, and we're including everybody in that. So we're collecting ourselves. We've been throwing dates around to make sure we can do that. So again, thank you to Mr. Drollinger, Mrs. Piper, and Mrs. Marsh, because they are, and myself, we are the team working with those who are our instructional leaders certainly, but also the future members of the committee, yet to be determined. So we're grateful for their efforts.
Great. Thank you, Dr.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Mr. Forbes. Okay. Ms. Morrison.
Just really a quick reminder, on the 29th, as well as our meeting, there will be the approval of, or the vote to approve the annual BOCES budget, as well as their Board of Education. Currently they have 5 spots, and they have 5 incumbents. So hopefully it'll be a pretty easy choice. But all of that will be coming to you information-wise in the packet that'll come for the 29th. So just so you're aware when it comes in, that's what it's all about.
Great, thank you, thank you. Oh, well, we anticipate the need to enter into executive tonight, discuss personnel and collective bargaining agreements. So could I have a motion?
So moved.
Ms. Portman? Yep, second?
Second.
Ms. Hahn, thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thanks, everybody. Thank you, Mary, for attending. Thank you to students for attending. Students, anybody can sign it. And have a good night.